weeks into the cross-examination of the alleged intruder with no end in sight. Hello and welcome to Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa Murder Trial Rep. I'm Mnisi, and as always, we love hearing from you. So we have a weekly poll question for you that we want you to interact with. So make sure that you get in touch with us. So our weekly poll question this week, we're asking you, should the court accept Bongani Ntanzi's claim that he didn't have a phone while in custody? So those options are on your screen right now. We've got yes, no, and it does not matter. So those are the options that you have. Remember, we love hearing from you, so do scan that QR code that's on the screen right now. But you can also tweet us. Our social media platforms are Newzroom Afrika on Facebook, but on Twitter we are at Newzroom405. Remember, you can also get in touch with us via our WhatsApp line. That number now on your screen as well. So make sure that you interact with that number. You send us those messages that will, of course, be reading throughout the program. Now, of course, let's start here. The state continued to press defiant Bongani Ntanzi on cell phone records in an attempt to prove that the alleged intruder was in possession of his cell phone while in custody following his 16th of June 2020 arrest. But Ntanzi has dug in his heels, telling the court that his phone was seized on the day of the arrest. So the state continued to look at the calls between Bongani Ntanzi's number and that of his girlfriend, highlighting previous discussions that were recorded. And of course, these relate to issues of the admission, which was done in terms of Section 220. Let's take a look.
We are not going to traverse these calls with you, the 1,718 calls between your number and Lebo's number. And the reason is the following. During the proceedings of 14 June 2024, at page 21, it was during the cross-examination of Ms. Fai Thillingham from Vodacom, line number 2. It says Mrs. Bia, but we have established that it's actually Mr. Ramos Sepeli speaking. It says, when we ask for consultation and we do consider this number belongs to the ex-girlfriend of accused number 2, I also have spoken to her about this number, so it is not an issue that we will have to hammer over and over that these transactions, because we concede that transactions that they speak for themselves, my lord. Then the court asks Dr. Sibanda, what is the state's attitude? Then Dr. Sibanda responds as follows on line 9, Dr. Sibanda. My lord, the state will be happy if the defense on behalf of accused number 2 can make section 220 admissions, admitting to these facts. Then we can put it to rest and move further. Then on line 20, no, don't worry, I'll give you the pages. On line, on page 22, still on the 14th of June 2024, line 11, Mr. Ramos Sepeli. We admit the communication, my lord, in terms of section 220 of the Criminal Procedure Act, the communication between 060, that is your number, and 072, that's Lebo's number. And we place it on record, my lord, that we acknowledge that the number.
All right, so in essence, that by talking about the issue of the admission in terms of Section 220. But as always, I have my panel of guests with me in studio. I've got our new friend, Itu Mukwena, as well as Bongani Masuku. These are commentators, the voices that represent people who follow this case, members of the public. So Bongani, as you may know by now, Bongani is on the side of the defense who believe, or the people that believe that these are not the right guys, while Itu Mukwena is for the state, believing that the state has the right people here. Thank you very much for your time. Of course, actually, I need to remind you that at a later stage, we will be joined by our legal analysts who will also be helping us unpack this evidence a little bit further. But with the people in studio, I want to come to you. I'll start with you, Bongani, and the reason why is because this is your case, right? So I want us to look at, what Mohane said about the discovery of the phone, right, when he was testifying in court, versus what Bongani Ntanzi says. Obviously, these are two conflicting statements.
Yes, I understand. Two mutually disruptive versions, right? I get it. You see, when I may say, I told you, we are still cruising nicely. And abanye bana chest pains, and it's their problem. Mabane nkinga, clinic avuliwe 24 hours. It's not our problem. Ntanzi is very simple. Ntanzi is simply saying, Mnisi, listen, guys. You cannot talk to me about a phone, especially if that SIM card you state are saying, I use that SIM card which would have been taken by the police when I got arrested on the 16th of June. So, and the difficulties of the state is to say, if you guys are saying Ntanzi was found with that SIM card, then tell us if from SAP 13 there was any storage, reported stolen properties there. Because I made it a point to remind you that a whole former national acting commissioner, Mr. Pathan, said that when we arrest you, we as police, we take even the belt and we not even ask you to consent to that, we take because we are police officers. So if no one from the SAPS contested that, it remains the truth because he said it under oath, yes, not in court, but he said it in parliament and say, this is the procedure and the policy of SAPS. So if that's the procedure and the policy of SAPS, then it leaves you with one conundrum, that when Ntanzi got arrested, they confiscated everything around Ntanzi, including the SIM card. So if then you are saying when Ntanzi was found with a phone and that phone happens to have a SIM card that would have been taken when Ntanzi was arrested, Ntanzi is saying, no, and easy. I'm not going to glorify this thing by answering things that I don't know. As long as you are saying that, and this, that's what Ntanzi is saying.
Okay, Itu, let's address, the issues that Bongani is saying, because my understanding is that even at the time when the cell phone was recovered from Bongani Ntanzi, it was at a later stage, not at the time when he was arrested. Do you agree with what he says?
Thank you, Linda. I'm back, Manakochai. I'm back. My brother over here is avoiding the question. The discovery of the phone. The phone was discovered in prison with Ntanzi. How many months later? Now you are looking for information that would have been discovered when he was arrested. Clearly, that phone was not with him. That's why we don't have any evidence on how it was kept, where it was kept, what bag it was in. It was never there when he was arrested. It was only discovered months later. Months on Ntanzi, by the way. On Ntanzi. So there is no ways you can walk around this evidence.
Yeah, and because, Bongani, you are raising an issue of Homozo Patlan, who's obviously testifying in Parliament and not in court.
Yes,
again,
I agree.
These raises issues around what we're hearing in court and sideshows, because the court will not say, Homozo Patlan in Parliament said. It will not make reference to anything that he says. So what bearing do you think, what you're telling us will have on this particular element?
Anything that you said under oath, that is a lie. You could be prosecuted. Look, you can be punished for that. So we believe that what Mr. Patlan is saying there, he's telling us about the proper procedure, SAPS, that Nala maphepha waphethe, nala manzi Newzroom Afrika, nale tablet Newzroom Afrika, nale phone yakho. If they arrest you now, they take everything. Newzroom Afrika will recover that later on. That's the point that we are making, to say all of those things forms part and parcel of crime scene. Take everything.
The question, Bongani, that I'm asking you is, Khomotso Phahlane is not in court. You can see that he's not in court.
Fully.
So what he says is not in the court record, whether or not it's made under oath.
We take the policy, the SAPS. That's the point. That's what I'm gunning for. We are saying the policy, SAPS.
Are you saying there will be a witness who will talk to issues of policy in the SAPS that will support what you're saying?
Yazi Mnisi, into engiyithanda noku-hotspota bese uyayibamba lena. Into engiyithanda ngawo yileyo bese uyayibamba lena. Well, I told you that we are still cooking, and I told you we are cruising nicely, and I told you that we are here, you are here to see witnesses, and I told you, let me remind you. So if you want to play that soundbite, I will tell you that the only time I think Ntanzi will have difficulties in terms of witnesses, it is witnesses that will testify about his confession, because there it's only police versus Ntanzi. So I think that's the only time when Ntanzi will have difficulties. But other than the policy issues, I told you we are cruising nicely.
Bongani seemingly knows something that we don't know about yet, about a witness that will come and testify about policy. But I want to bring in our legal analyst, Kabelo Siabi. Kabelo, thank you very much for your time. I want us to focus on what my guest and I have been discussing, the issue around, the discovery of the phone. Is it, what bearing does it have on what the state is pressing Bongani Ntanzi on right now?
The issue here must be separated. One must keep in mind that what the state has been cross-examining about are events involving a phone in 2020 after the arrest. Mr. Ntanzi was arrested in June 2020, and the evidence that has been traversed as to the calls or the communication made from that device is for 2020. And what is most critical is that one must understand that these matters that are being debated are issues that are collateral to the real issue. The real issue, or the issues to be decided by the court, is whether or not in 2014, in October 26th, whether the accused was at forced arrest or not. So these issues of the phone must be understood in their proper context. And as I said, they are collateral issues. And those collateral issues are not key to determining as to whether Mr. Ntanzi was part of those people that committed the crime in October 2014. The sole importance of what has been debated for the whole week with regard to those calls would be that the state is trying to demonstrate that there were calls or communication made from a device, and this device, they have tried to associate it with Mr. Ntanzi by showing that there were numerous calls to his girlfriend, there were numerous calls to his mother, there were calls or communication with those individuals, and putting across that there is no probability that the police are the people that have manufactured or fabricated that these calls were made to those individuals. Now, the importance of the evidence as far as the totality of what has been happening this week is to be found in the communication from that cell phone to Mr. Mjiako. There was a please call me, there was communication with Mr. Mjiako, and what the state is trying to show with this piece of evidence that has been ventilated for a very long time is that Mr. Ntanzi does know Mr. Mjiako.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, you speak about it being a collateral issue, but do you think the intention here is perhaps to also show the patterns that would have happened before he was arrested and while he was in custody, to prove that it couldn't have been just, you know, another person who is handling the phone? It could have only been Bongani Ntanzi.
Yes, you would have seen that the prosecutor has been at pains to identify individually calls that were made, and has also been trying to show even the duration of those calls, the times of those calls, the place where those calls were made. Yeah. And all that is aimed at showing that the only person that could have made those calls would be Mr. Ntanzi, meaning that Mr. Ntanzi was in possession of the device.
All right.
And as I said, buried in the totality of all that is the fact that there was that communication with Mr. Mziago. And you must remember, the evidence is crucial in as far as the accused person, Mr. Ntanzi, said he does not know Mr. Mziago.
All right, so I want us to take a quick ad break, because when we come back, I want us to take a look at photographic evidence that the state had the time to confront Bongani Ntanzi with. So make sure you stay tuned. Welcome back, and thank you for choosing to stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're watching Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa Murder Trial Wrap, with myself, Mnisi. Now, the state shifted gears, still on the cell phone records, but turned to photographic evidence. The evidence largely falls on the date in which Ntanzi was still in custody, but the alleged intruder challenges the dates on the pictures. Take a look.
There's a date and time when this represents the date and time when the photo was taken. It's 2020 09 24 13 43 21.
That is not the initial date or the date. And what I like about all this is that when Ndlovu was testifying, he did mention to the court that it is possible for one to change dates on the pictures. This date that appears here is not the date of this picture.
No, there is not the evidence of Warrant Officer Ndlovu. We wish to refer you to his evidence on the 11th of June 2025.
Is his evidence, my lord, even though I cannot recall exactly who posed that question to him, whether it was Nxumalo or Mshololo, and the question was that, can one be able to alter the date? And he confirmed yes. If I was able to ascertain whose house is this, I was going to be able to tell the court when this picture was taken.
All right, I'm still joined by my guests, Itu Mukwena and Bongani Masuku, who are commentators following the trial very, very closely, while we also have our legal analyst, Kabelo Siabi. I want us to come to studio, and Itu, let's talk about what you made of what led to the early adjournment during the week. The issue around whether or not Bongani Ntanzi and the entire defense team would have seen these pictures, because it is something that, you know, the judge said, I want to be fair to the accused, because he says he hasn't seen these pictures. What do you make of that?
Another issue with the defense. I mean, it is another episode of Never Have I Ever in Judge Ratta's court, where the defense insists on the fact that they have not seen evidence, but we have previously given the defense time to go look at the evidence. We are talking about Exhibit 6. That is the memory stick that was handed to the defense with over 5,000 photos. Now, I understand that you could miss some photos, But to stand up and say that I have never seen such evidence, it has never been disclosed to us, and the picture does not have an exhibit number. That's what Ms. Mshololo said. It is impossible for the picture to have an exhibit number. Are you expecting all the pictures that were in the memory stick to have an exhibit number? It's not going to have an exhibit number. The evidence was traversed in court. Warrant Officer Ndlovu came and spoke to the evidence. He was cross-examined on the evidence. So it is impossible for you to say that you have not seen. Just because a picture was not looked at over the 5,000 pictures, obviously they're not going to look at all the photos. And the state has every right to look at all those photos and cross-examine Ntanzi on his own pictures. So the defense cannot say that, no, this is a trial by ambush because we never had these pictures. And Judge Ratta, you know what, I understand where Judge Ratta is coming from, but he's been very lenient towards the defense, in my opinion, when it comes to holding them accountable for the things that they were supposed to know at this point of the trial. This evidence was traversed last year in June, but it seems Ramsipile has forgotten about that evidence. You know, and it's a concern for me because how do you prepare Ntanzi for his case if you are forgetting the evidence that's already been laid against Ntanzi? And the evidence that Judge Ratta is now faced with, he needs to consider this evidence. It's an exhibit in court. He has to consider the evidence. So the fact that Ramsipile did not prepare Ntanzi with this evidence, it's really a shortfall and oversight on their side.
Yeah, Bongani, obviously the court painted a worrying picture. It seemed the court was quite worried about this incident, right? Even leading to a point where they're given time to go and look at the picture itself. Talk to us about what you made of that moment. A slight oversight or just an issue of the state playing cat and mouse with the defense?
Yazi mina yazi mekhuluma abantu ababalekile lazweni njengenkosi yamaZulu kulokhu King Misuzulu wakathi mase uKing Misuzulu bayoze bathi bhuti yazi lamagama lawa ngikhubuza district ne yabo there are a lot of things that have happened in the Senzo Meyiwa case. Abanye bahlushwa amnesia omakhelwane bahlushwa amnesia bayakhohlwa ukuthi not long ago we have had a problem where Mnisi have had to say, hey, evidence is coming in drips and drops here. Look, we even made an example that, hey, it's like we're in a train that is coming from Joburg to KZN. This train will keep consistently having to stop because the evidence is given in drip and drops. So it could be that they got distracted because of evidence. There's been an established tendency or pattern where evidence is given in drips and drops. But Mnisi, before you say, oh, yeah, well, I don't know. I want to go into the issue of pictures. Just give me time. I want to go into it.
Yeah, we'll come back. We'll come back to that because that's actually what I want to pick up with Kabelo. Kabelo, let me bring you into the conversation here. I mean, the issue of the metadata is what seems to be under the spotlight when it comes to these pictures, right? And it seems Bongani Ntanzi is not disputing the existence of the pictures. He's not saying these pictures were taken with another phone. All he's simply saying is that the date on the particular picture were changed, which would then fall into back, the issue of the time when he was in custody. I mean, help us make sense of this and how this particular defense assists him.
Linda, with regard to whether it is possible or not to change the metadata on the pictures, that matter would require expert evidence. It would require that the defense would have to come with somebody that will then testify so that that can be taken into consideration. The mere fact that he or the accused himself is saying that there was a change and without any basis for him to alleging that is not going to avail him much, except if there is an expert witness that will be called and the expert witness will take the court through how that metadata can be changed. Without that, I'm afraid that his mere say-so that there was a change of the metadata is not going to hold water.
Yeah, and Itu, one other thing that the state seems to be doing here is going toe-to-toe with him. It seems on this particular aspect, they came with court records referring to the evidence, like you mentioned, of Warrant Officer Ndlovu. He moved to Advocate Mshololo and the cross-examination thereof, and they took him there to say, this is what the defense lawyer said about the status of this particular issue. It was, in fact, not challenged. Warrant Officer Ndlovu's evidence was not challenged, or the chain thereof.
I must say, I need to give it to the state. Or maybe I'm team state, that's why I'm going to give it to them. But they are so prepared. They are prepared with the records from last year. They are prepared with what Ntanzi just said an hour ago, which he has forgotten and is changing. But Warrant Officer Ndlovu's evidence was applauded by Mr. Ramusepele, which is Ntanzi's lawyer. He said that, you know what, if I could clap my hands for you, because there's nothing I can say to you. You are saying you came here with this evidence and you did your job, you are done, you don't know why you're here, because I'm not being questioned on whether the authenticity of my work has been tainted or not. Nobody's talking about that, which is true. Nobody ever questioned whether there was any editing on any photos, if information has ever been changed. Nobody put that on the expert that came, the person that did the work. Now Ntanzi wants to come months later when he is confronted by evidence and say that, "Aye, mina ngeke," and he can't say, "Aye, mina ngeke," with no evidence. Like, you cannot rebut evidence with no evidence. Just you saying, "Aye, mina ngeke." It's not going to work, Ntanzi. Judge Rata is faced with evidence from Warrant Officer Ndlovu and Ramusepele clapping his hand and saying, "Well done, Mr. Ndlovu, for your job." And now Ntanzi is going against it.
Yeah, let's go there, because I know you want to raise the issue of Advocate Mshololo asking the question around whether or not the pictures can be edited.
We ask again. Mana, umakhelwane uhlushwa amnesia. Mina, njengo caring makhelwane, I will help you. Lalel, what we are doing here, we are laying the foundation, so that when we come and we call a witness, nobody will say, "But you didn't raise it up."
Yes.
Like they once said, "No, but you didn't point it out during the cross-examination." So let me remind you, because Macron amnesia. You will remember that Thabo Msiya, when Thabo Msiya was cornered, Sergeant or what, or Captain, when he was cornered with the evidence, chain of evidence and phosphorus, he was meandering around the bush until he admitted that there was something wrong, and that's how he got law. That's how they allow him to go. Then what they did with Sergeant Ndlovu was to do the same thing. Advocate Mshololo under cross-examination. Ask Sergeant Ndlovu, where Bam Ndlovu? Awuchaze la. Ithombe ziyeditheka noma cha, wathini uBam Ndlovu? Qedela Mnisi. Ngisho ngathi chest pains. What I'm trying to say is, uNdlovu under oath told us, ukuthi no, you can edit pictures. I know how to edit pictures. And so when I heard that, I was like, hey, my umakila uhlushwa amnesia. Ukhumbula lezi ezibalekile ufuna ukuyikhumbula.
Yeah, and I want you to hold that thought, because I think also what is important is the context to the question that was being asked. Let's take another quick ad break. More on this when we come back. Welcome back, and thank you for choosing to stay with us. Let's check in with our poll at this particular moment. We asked you whether the court should accept Bongani Ntanzi's explanation that he was not in possession of a cell phone while in custody. Those options are on your screen. Yes, 19% of you saying yes. No, 73%, and only 8% of you saying it does not matter. Make sure to scan that QR code, and of course, interact with us on our social media platforms. At Newzroom 405 is our handle on Twitter. But we also asked you to tweet us and send us WhatsApp messages. Let's go over to social media platform X. Kevi says, at least make it make sense that on the 16th of June, he was arrested. Police took 3 phones. 7 months later, they find a phone. They didn't book that phone. They downloaded the phone in 2020 last quarter. Like, make it make sense. So that is a view coming from social media platform X. On WhatsApp, hi Linda. No, the court shouldn't accept Ntanzi's explanation. It doesn't make sense. Does he want us to believe that the cops were making and receiving calls and SMSs from his family, extended family, and girlfriend? That's Brett K. On our WhatsApp line. Linda, the law states that when police arrest someone, they must search him or her thoroughly. So if police say Ntanzi had his phone, which means he was not searched. That's Andrew Ndlovu from Pretoria. Let's check in with another WhatsApp message saying, hello, Linda. Yes, because one cannot explain how did he charge his phone while in custody without the warders and other inmates seeing him. That's Samuel Mojano. Another one from Anonymous says, hi, Linda. For as long as those who were present in the house when Meyiwa was killed have not appeared in court, let us assume that Ntanzi is leading by 5-0. That phone was used while he was in custody. SAPS knows the truth. So those are some of those WhatsApp messages that are coming from the people who are interacting with us via our WhatsApp line. Quite interesting views there coming from our viewers who are tuned in right now on the program. Itu, I want us to come back quickly to the issue of the photographs.
Yes, Linda, my friend, hey, Mikey, no, wapinelwa for real, because if you were listening to Advocate Baloyi's evidence that was late this week, he was talking about multiple dates. Now, of course, you can edit a video or a picture. That is known fact. That's common fact.
And the date?
If you're going to edit a picture, it is going to leave a trail behind. It is going to show you that this picture was edited on this day. If you were listening to Baloyi's evidence that he was leading, he was talking about 3 different dates. He's talking about a date when a picture was created. That is when a picture was taken. He is speaking about a date when a picture was modified. That means you have changed something in that picture. Now, those 2 dates, if you do edit on different dates, they're not going to be the same. He is also talking about an access date. Access date means that you have now accessed this picture, you have gone into the picture. Though you have not done anything, you have accessed it. That's 3 different dates. The issue with this picture that Baloyi is leading of Ntanzi, it's got 3 dates and they're all the same. It was taken on the same day, right? It was modified on the same day, meaning there is no modification that has been done because we don't have a different date. It also has an access date that is exactly the same. So when was this picture edited? Because we would have seen the trail that this picture was actually taken in KZN before COVID or during COVID, before he came down for work. And then it was edited later in 2020 when he was in prison by the police. There is no such evidence in front of Judge Rata. Now you are actually cooking. You've stopped cruising and you are cooking now, my brother.
Yeah. That also raises the issue of, you know, like it was raising the issue of locations, right? When, you know, he's asked about the difference in time, right? He says Rustenburg and KZN, which is something that he says I couldn't have traveled within seconds to 2 different locations.
Because my friend here, just amnesia, amnesia. Ntanzi is simply saying that because, guys, my problem here is Babu Baloyi. Let's talk about let's copy. Let's talk about copy. It's actually the same picture as the original. So what are you trying to say? What do you want me to explain? Because this is just the same thing that what Ntanzi is saying.
Yeah, I want you to hold that thought because I want us to move to the next point, because you'd also recall that one of the other things that the state was raising was the issue around the calls like that viewer raised. Family members, extended family members, people that you know from your village and the like. So let's take a look at what, you know, Advocate Baloyi asked, in particular around that particular situation of contact with family, Lebu, and the likes.
Are you suggesting that a strange caller was calling your grandmother, Lebu, as well as your mother? Is that what you said?
I just want to repeat myself in front of the court because this thing is just clear. The phone was not with me and I'm not hiding that before the court. When my phone was taken, it was on, the data was active or on in WhatsApp and Facebook. And at home, I have my brother's children. They also have WhatsApp, they have Facebook. And again, they will not just not give information to my mom that their uncle's phone is active. So what will happen, my mom will take the phone, call my number.
All right, let's bring in Kabelo Siabe, our legal analyst. Kabelo, again, the issue around calling extended family members, going down to people that are from Ingoma, to people from the villages. Talk to us about, where the state is going and whether or not Bongani Ntanzi is answering in a satisfactory manner.
Thank you, Linda. The issue there is that when evidence is approached, one must test the evidence as to whether the version that is being said is probable or not. Now, what the state is trying to establish in its approach is that it is very highly improbable that anybody would have held conversations with people that are associated with Ntanzi. You must remember that if the case of Mr. Ntanzi is that the cell phone was taken by the police, now, would the policeman have gone and talked to his girlfriend over an extended period of time? What would they have been talking about? So the state is trying to show that on a probability scale, that there is no probability that these calls were made by anybody other than Mr. Ntanzi.
Yeah,
that is what the state is trying to establish.
Yeah, and when we go back to some of the answers that he's given, he tells the court that there are certain people within his circle that were being threatened, and the counter questions that he seems to face as well is, why is it that none of the people around you raised the concern that the cops are calling them?
That is the point. The point is that, and you would have seen that the prosecutor goes and shows that this call lasted for X number of minutes or X number of time. It is because he's trying to show that this call duration, let's say it's a policeman calling, what would the policeman have been conveying over that period of time, and why would the recipient of the call, be it his mother, be it his girlfriend, why would they have not raised an issue that I'm receiving these many strange calls that last for periods of time, which come from your number, but there's no conversation or there's nothing that is said. So this is the probability scale that the prosecutor is working on to show that the only probable inference in the matter is that, yes, Mr. Ntanzi had the device with him and that he made the various calls.
Yeah, and Kabelo, it is talking about the probability scale, and I want us to come back to the issues of even Mabena, one of the late investigators in this matter, his number seemingly coming into the picture.
Yes, Mnisi, you know what, Linda, it's actually quite incredible when Baloyi actually put it to Ntanzi and said that, but Ntanzi, how do you know Mabena's number by head? Like, how are you able to recognize it so quickly? Yet, well, me at home, I'm thinking, yeah, Ntanzi had issues identifying his mother's number, yet he can identify his Mabena, the person that had been torturing him, the person that had made him go through all these things. He's able to recognize the number so quickly. And his contradiction in answering, because he gives an answer before they go to the break, and he says that, no, Mabena wrote down this number for me so that he can be called if there's an issue with me in prison. When he comes back from the break, he says that, no, I have this number because it was written down on the rights that they gave me when they were arresting me. Contradiction. And I want to hear what my friend is going to cook. I don't know if he's cooking or he's cruising, but hopefully he'll cook something and explain to us why the different versions, because he is going to be confronted with this. But Loy said he's going to go check the record and understand what you said before the break and what you said after the break is contradicting each other.
Yeah, Bongani, come in there when it comes to the issue of, you know, remembering and recognizing Mabena's number, because again, remember the issue around Lebu's number. He was asked whether or not it's on the phone book, and he said he knows it off by heart. And the question was, if you know it by heart, how then would the police officers have known Lebu's number in order for them to call her? And he raises the issue of Dr. Tlokwe. It was also on Dr. Tlokwe's documents, so the police could have gotten it there. Talk to us about the issue around memory and him being able to recognize certain numbers and not being able to recognize others.
Have you ever heard, Mnisi, about this thing by Bizan? I was studying about something. It's called trauma bond. So when you're trauma bonded, is when you love something that you hate. You love and hate. Yeah. Now, this thing, it has got triggers, just to give you something. So what I'm trying to explain to you is, we have all of this. Good one, number one, or kunobusobu one in Gondona, or bang traumatized. Even when I'm sleeping, I will never forget it. That is when Ntanzi is. There's a number, there's an email address. I know that email address by head, because I'm traumatized. So that is when Ntanzi is coming from. Ntanzi is simply saying, guys, I went through a lot here, such that there are people, I will remember them into details. There are situations that I will remember. For instance, Ntanzi will tell you what happened when. And it was proven right. You remember that the issue of the AVL record that came and proved Ntanzi right. But it doesn't mean, didn't they stop at Albertine Engine? When Ntanzi says there's a garage there, and it was during the late advocate in Ngomezulu, who then also said, I know the address, and AVL record came and proved that. But this is me trying to explain the memory Ntanzi. Yeah. In all of that, it doesn't mean that Ntanzi would have been accurate in all of it, because it's not like Ntanzi got arrested today and then maybe like the guy who's arrested in DJ Wara store local case. They are arrested. God's willingly, they will appear in court in 3 months' time. That then gives them the chance to remember everything into details, as opposed to that.
You speak about trauma bonding, and sure. I think I want to take you up on that, because if you can remember something that traumatized you, surely you can remember somebody that loved you, your mother, and their number, and where you got a hold of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You want me to say something about it?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a sister of mine I love so much, but I don't know her number. I do remember the number of a person who traumatized me, and their email address and their face, but the number of the person whom I love so much, which is my sister. Yeah. It's funny that I know it starts with 061, but I don't know the rest.
Let's go to Kabelo Siabi. I don't know if you still have him. Kabelo, I mean, we're talking about issues of memory here, and I can't help but remember that there were also issues of, Ntanzi, whether or not the language barrier, English, and those are things that speak directly to the credibility of a witness and how much they're able to remember.
When one is faced with looking at the evidence of a witness, the court will obviously be mindful of the fact that when the events happened, one did not take down notes or memorize events, because one would not have had the foresight of knowing that at some future date I must remember each and every minute details. So the lapsing of time will be a consideration that the court will give. But when one pretends to remember certain things and at the very same time says that they do not remember other things, then it creates a picture that this person wants only these facts to be placed before the court, and is deliberately excluding the other facts which are not in their favor.
Yeah, and obviously the consequences of that?
The consequences would be that their evidence will then be found to be untrustworthy and unreliable. You must remember that one of the functions that the court has to perform is to determine as to what is reliable evidence and what is trustworthy evidence in the matter. And if you give evidence that is selective, that evidence would be rendered or would be found to be unreliable and untrustworthy by the court.
All right, let's take another quick ad break, because when we come back, we look ahead at the coming week. Don't miss it. Oh, time flies when you're having fun. Welcome back. This is Inside the Courtroom, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. I want us to take a look at the WhatsApp messages that you've been sending to us, like we requested. Muzi on our WhatsApp line says, Linda Mnisi, yes, metadata can easily be altered, removed or falsified using built-in operating system properties, specialized software like EXIF tool, or media editing tools. I can prove more. That's Muzi there sending us a message on WhatsApp. Let's take a look at what other people had to say. Mpokumalo coming in and saying, hi Linda and team, it is improbable that anyone other than Ntanzi could call and receive calls from his own mother. So that's Mpokumalo with their view there. Anonymous says, hi Linda, no, the court should not accept Bongani Ntanzi's explanation on issues of him having a cell phone while in custody, because this is not the first statement he made trying to defend himself in court, which was later found to be untrue. This is another lie from him. Kenneth Ndlovu says, hi Linda, it is simple. The phone was taken by the state. How did he get it back? As they claim he is the one who was using it, but he was locked up. So those are the WhatsApp messages that are coming through from the people that are watching the show. Quite interesting views there from the people that are watching us at this very moment. And I want us to look ahead. I mean, do you think that the state, obviously Kabelo helping us understand that it all circles back to the confession statement, the probabilities of him having his phone and being able to call Ntokozo Mjiako, who he disputes that represented him. Do you think the state has proven its point and it's time to move on to the next part?
Linda, I believe that Advocate Baloyi has proven his point. He's gone beyond proving the point. I mean, just last week when he said to Ntanzi, how is it possible that these numbers were not saved on your phone, but you are alleging that the police made the calls to these people and the police initiated the calls to the people? How would they have known who these numbers belong to? He has gone beyond, you know, the way he placed the evidence on record. I believe that he has shown that Ntanzi cannot be relied on. What I just want him to push forward and do now is ask Judge Rata to play the confession record. That's what I need. That's what I need from Baloyi. Let's focus on that submission to Judge Rata to play the record, please.
Play the record. Do you think the state is overdoing it and it's time to move on to the next point?
You said it very nicely. Advocate Baloyi, it's like, Batse Apanye is a former football player. He knows how to waste time. He will make you tired. Even the judge at some point was like, why don't you take these things and then put it into one thing and say, listen, these are the calls that were made, bulk them together. Advocate Baloyi, want to go there one by one.
But to be fair, there was a court order, remember?
What is a
there was a court order because there was an objection from the defense that said, we want to hear his explanation.
Yes.
Okay, no. Mina is a none. It's not the first time Advocate Baloyi entered this thing.
Yeah.
Even, this is the same thing that they did to, I think it's accused number 1. When Dr. Sbanda was cross-examining, I think, was it accused number 1? I think so. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I know. Yeah, but I myself, I'll be like, I know I'm tired now. I'm tired.
Yeah.
So I think I'm like, if I'm tired and I'm not in the box, I wonder what is happening. So I'm trying to say, sometimes you feel like, no, man, I feel like it's too much. It's like it's a strategy to get you tired so we can ask you the crucial questions when you are tired, because we know that now we are at the point where you just want to give up. So then we'll ask you the right questions and then you'll give us what we want to hear, and then we'll hold you accountable based on that.
Yeah, Governor, and I want your thoughts on the state's strategy here. Seemingly, they're going through all the calls, but do you think the point has been made and it's time to move on to the next element? But of course, we've seen in previous instances where certain answers that witnesses would give would ultimately later be asked to other witnesses who may come to testify on behalf of the defense.
Linda, with regard to the calls made from that device, and as I said, one must be mindful of the fact that what was being traversed were calls that were being made or communication that was being made after the arrest in June 2020. It is collateral, as I said earlier, in a sense that it does not actually prove that Mr. Ntanzi was at Foslores in 2014. But what the importance of it is that, as I said, the one thing that is very, very important from all that mountain of calls that were identified is the fact that there was communication with Mr. Imichiako. Now, the surrounding circumstances, that which were ventilated and were ventilated for a very long time, that this call was made, I think that point has been made by the state, and probably the state needed to move away from the individual calls. I am sure that they have established that the communication that came from that device, in all probability, came from Mr. Ntanzi. That matter has been made, or that point has been made.
All right. I want us to check in with the final results of the poll question, because recall, we ask you every week to weigh in on the week's evidence. And the question that we had for you this week was, should the court accept Bongani Ntanzi's claim that he didn't have a cell phone while in custody? A whopping 73% of you saying no, 21% of you saying yes, while 6% saying it does not matter. So those are the final results for today's poll. Bongani Ntanzi is back on the stand for further cross-examination on Monday. This as the state enters its third week of putting tough questions to the alleged intruder. Lady and gents, thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. But you and I at home will be back again next week for more on the upcoming week's evidence. Until then, have a good one.